tell us a bit about yourself, your name, your age.
So my name is Robert Schuppe. I'm 26. I'm originally from Lüneburg in northern Germany, but have been living in Dresden for a while. I have a bunch of different hobbies, and one, not the least, is doing amateur theatre with Eclectic Theatre.
When did you join Eclectic Theatre?
I first joined Eclectic Theatre in 2020, the beginning of 2020. So I've been here for about 4 years now. Have been doing a few different shows in different roles. And yeah, my first one was Little Shop of Horrors, where I played a plant, or I synchronized a plant, so to speak. And then I've had a few different ones I was so fortunate to participate in.
What was your favorite role?
I think maybe my favorite role was actually my first role, where I was the giant man-eating plant Audrey 2. It was just a lot of fun. Even though I was not on stage myself, I was just synchronizing a puppet. But it was really fun. The songs were great that I was allowed to sing because it was a musical. And it was also just a fun character because it was switching gears a lot. It was sometimes very pushy and bossy, and sometimes it was meek and tried to persuade somebody by pretending to be super weak, and it flipped on a dime. In a moment, it went from A to B and back, and that was really fun to play, and just a fun show in general.
So what do you like about playing theatre? Is it this change, or what specifically?
There are a couple of things I really like about theatre. One is that you are able to experience something else. You can be somebody else. You can try out to be somebody who you'd never want to be, but it's fun to try it out. It's the team spirit. I mean, it's really a special connection with different people when you're working towards a performance. You know, the pressure is mounting. Premiere is drawing nearer and nearer, and it's quite special. But also sort of the thrill of, when there is the performance, there are a bunch of people and you don't want to disappoint them, you want to do good, and so there's also a certain thrill of really getting sucked into it and being really focused because you don't want to mess up. So it's a very intense experience, and I quite like that, I would say.
Since you mentioned not disappointing the other people, so how is the group feeling within Eclectic Theatre?
The group feeling is really nice in general. It's funny because it changes a lot. You see people a bunch, and very, very often when you are rehearsing for a particular play, because you are, meeting each other a couple times a week for quite some time, there are times where you see the people from Eclectic way more than most of your other friends. And then there are times where you don't see the other people at all, basically, because you are not doing something for a little while because, for example, something has been put on where you are not in, or there is a summer break or something. So it goes back and forth. But in general, the team spirit is super nice. You have lots of people who have different backgrounds who come together, different nationalities, different professional backgrounds, and together you put up something, and it's really something different compared to other hobbies, because it's not just, you meet a couple of times and you do something for fun, but you know that you have to work together. Sometimes there's friction because of that as well, but in the end that is also some sort of a bonding effect, because you work towards a goal, and nobody wants to let the other down usually, and if somebody wants to let the other down, then I don't think they will be around for long, because we would kick them out, of course. No, we wouldn't, but it usually people are, when they come to Eclectic and they want to do it, then they have the drive to really give everything and be in the team and be a group player.
So what do you like most about being part of Eclectic Theatre compared to other groups, maybe?
It's really fun to be part of Eclectic once, because you're meeting really different people, also from different countries. We don't only have Germans and English native speakers. We have people from India, from Serbia, Italy, different countries. But it's also very fun because you can try out a lot, because we are a fairly small group. We are amateurs, which means that you're not pinned down to, okay, this is the one thing I've learned, I maybe studied or whatever, and that's what I have to do. You can try out different things. Whether it is that you want to get into the technical side and help with lighting or something, or whether you maybe at some point want to try to do something different in the production as well, like helping with directing or doing a poster or doing social media or whatever. It's really, you can try out a lot and see if that's something for you, if you want to be involved a little more, and if you don't, that's fine as well. You can just play your role, and that's all. That's what some people do, or maybe actually the majority of people does it that way. But it provides you with lots and lots of opportunities, which are quite fun, and yeah, that's not something you can do in very many places in that capacity.
So you mentioned trying out new stuff. The last 2 years you've been writing your own piece. So tell me about something about the play.
So the last play we put on was The Music Mafia, which is a musical which I wrote together with Lukas Hurtig. We wrote the music together, I wrote the text. I've always been fond of writing. I wrote little things here and there, but never really finished anything that was a little bit bigger. But when I started getting more into musical theater, I thought that would be really, really fun. And at some point I started with just like a crazy idea. I never really thought in the beginning that it would lead anywhere. I just started for fun, and at some point I, just kept going, and then Lucas came on board, and then at some point we decided that we would like to try to do that with Eclectic. And that was actually quite a motivational factor, because once you know that people rely on that you will finish it and we want to do it, that can really push you through times where you're thinking like, oh, I don't feel like writing right now. It's not fun at this point, because these times will always come. But yeah, it's much easier to finish something and to keep revising it and so on when you have a purpose, a goal, rather than you just writing for yourself in your little room at home.
How long did it take you to write it, and did the piece change a lot from the beginning to the final version?
The Music Mafia changed a lot over time. I have a document which is named, I think, Cut Pieces, and it's longer than the actual final script. It took me about 3 years from the very first idea to write it, even though for the first year and a half I didn't work on it very regularly. It was often I did a little something, and then for 3-4 weeks, maybe even a few months, I didn't do anything at all. So it changed quite a bit. Characters were cut, scenes were cut, songs were cut, scenes were revised. There are a few scenes that didn't change so much at all, but lots of them were changing over time. Some in the writing process and some during rehearsal. That's actually quite normal, I would say, that as a group you have to try out if the scene works for you, if the text works for the actor, and especially if you're writing a new play, even more so than, some things you really only realize when they are rehearsed for the first time that they don't work or that they would be better differently. So you make a change because of that. That happens quite a bit, I would think. Yeah, at least it wasn't like that in this case.
How do you like the final piece and how it came together? And are there some parts that you miss that they are gone now?
I'm very happy how it turned out in the end. There are a few things where I thought, okay, they would have been fun that have been cut. But I think in general, it was a good idea to cut them. I'm not really, regretting anything that has been cut, because some things were fun in themselves, but they were not really fitting into the play. So even though a scene might be funny or a song might be nice or something, if it doesn't really fit into the story, then it's probably better to get rid of it. So there are some things where I say, like, yeah, that was fun. I actually liked the scene or the song in itself, but I wouldn't put it back in even if I had the chance for a future performance. And probably the actors who are on stage with me are very happy that I'm not, turning up and saying, look, I've got 3 more scenes that were cut and we're going to put them back in. Let's rehearse again. I think that would probably kill me. So it's good that I don't actually feel the urge to do that.
How supportive was Eclectic Theatre in your whole process, since you mentioned it was the first time you writing something like that?
I was actually quite surprised how quote-unquote easy it was to put on something original with Eclectic, because frankly it was a bit of a crazy idea to say like, yeah, I would like to write a musical. That's a lot of different things, and I had really not done any of that. Neither had I written a play, nor had I written a lot of songs. I had written a few, but definitely not many. So it was pretty crazy if you looked at it by daylight, and I was sort of prepared to really have to fight for it. And to be fair, it was very well received and the idea was supported. So I was very thankful to be given that opportunity. there were differences for sure in some part of the process. Sometimes also, little fights over, what should stay in and what should be done in which way. That happens. That's how the process is often. But in general, I was very happy to be given that opportunity and didn't really have to push for it much at all. So yeah, that was quite nice.
How many of the songs are originals in the play, and where did you get the inspiration to write them?
Almost all of the songs are original. I think we have 21, and there's one traditional folk song in it. That's the only one that is not original. The other ones are all original songs. Inspiration differed a lot. I mean, mostly it's not been that I can name a certain inspiration. Usually I just, of course, all the types of music I listen to have played some role in, what kind of melodies and chord progressions and so on came up in my mind when I started writing. But rarely there is really a concrete inspiration. At times there were a few genres, because we have different genres of music in there. There were a few genres where it was, I listened to some music specifically because I was not so familiar with that particular genre. Like we have one sort of swingy, bluesy song in there, and that's not really the kind of music I mostly play or listen to. So I tried to listen to a couple of different things to get into that mood a little bit, but then I also relied on Lucas, who wrote a quite significant portion of that song. And yeah, there are a few songs, like, for example, there are a few country numbers in them, and they are a little bit meta in the sense that they make fun of country as a genre. So I try to study that genre a little bit as well, just to, see what are the patterns that repeat themselves in many country songs. So it's kind of fitting that sort of a parody of a genre. But most of the songs just were like, okay, I'm going to sit down and try something, or Lucas sat down, or we sat down together, and not really a specific inspiration.
You had the premiere last December. Tell me a bit of how it was perceived and how you and Lucas were feeling about that.
Yeah, the premiere was great. It was very well received, I would think. The room was full. The people laughed at appropriate places and not when they weren't supposed to laugh, and we had a nice applause. So I was very happy. I felt very relieved. We had a lot of work in the time before that. It was quite stressful, and we were all anxious to see how it would go. But in the end, we were very happy how it went, and looking forward to the next performances.
Do you have a favorite scene of the musical that year? Or a song, or anything specific?
I have one favorite scene, which is the last scene of the first act, just before the intermission, and it's sort of a very sort of dark, gloomy scene with a duet of two female characters who are singing above each other. The voices are overlapping, even though they are not talking to each other. And I really like the mood of the scene and the atmosphere of the final scene, but I might be biased because that's really the only scene I've ever seen live and in full lighting with costumes and band and so on, because we redid the scene once, and I think it was a dress rehearsal, and I was already sitting in the audience because I'm not in the scene myself, and I saw it with like the full effect on, because usually I'm behind the scenes or on stage, and that was actually quite a difference to see that one. So I might be biased, but that is one that I really like. That might be my favorite of the play.
So you just mentioned you play yourself in the play. Is it hard to direct and play yourself at the same time?
So it was good that I didn't direct. I was the author of the play and I played a part, but I very specifically said, no, I don't want to try being the director as well. That would be really too much. It was hard at times to have double duty because, yeah, sometimes I was more focused on, does this scene work as a whole, and do I have to change something of the script, or do I have to cut a song or something, and couldn't focus so much on the rehearsal process. So it was a little tough at times. But on the other hand, it was really nice to be able to be on stage myself when we had the premiere and not just sit in the audience, but be part of the group and be part of the cast. Even though it was not like a leading character, but at least be in some scenes was really fun. Even though it's harder than one might think to act out your own text. One would think it would be super easy, but actually in a way it was maybe even harder to play something you wrote yourself than something else, because you had something in your head how it would sound. You had a very specific idea when you wrote it, but it's not that easy to actually act that way, that it turns out the way you had it in your head. And I think for me at least that's different when you have a script that has been written by somebody else. You have less specific ideas maybe going into it, how it has to sound or has to look or whatever.
There are going to be a few performances this first half of the year. Are there going to be major changes to how it was first performed, or will it be in a similar way?
As in general, when we're doing the show again, the shows will be quite similar. We're not changing anything major. We're not changing any of the songs or the blocking or whatever. But there were 2 people missing for the premiere because of COVID, which was quite unfortunate. So there are 2 people who will have their premiere in March, and I'm really looking forward to that because they were working their asses off. They have both quite significant parts, and they're doing a great job with the whole thing. I've seen them rehearse for a long time, and they've been putting a lot of work into it, and then they were robbed of their general premiere, which was really a shame. I'm happy that we still managed the premiere anyway, and I think it was still a good show, but I'm really looking forward to that. I think that it will be the biggest difference when we are having the next performances that Stefan and Anna will also play, which they weren't able, neither of them could play on the premiere or the second night we had already.
You're gonna have guest performances in the St. Pauli Arena, not only in the Theaterhaus Rudi. Is that correct?
Yes, that's also a change. We will also do a Gastspiel, as you would call it in German, at the St. Pauli Ruine, which is a really fun venue. I've played there a couple of times already, and it's a very nice atmosphere. A church ruin with a glass roof. Really quite different to the venue we are usually playing in, so that should be fun to see how the show feels in a different setting, on a different stage. And hopefully it will also attract a little bit of a different audience. I mean, it's the same city, but I think there are different people who are mainly going to see shows in the Rudi and people who are mainly seeing shows at the St. Pauli Ruine. Some of them might be overlapping, but so I hope that we will also be able to reach some people who would not have noticed the show if we were just playing it at the Rudi.
Will your set work in a completely different stage?
I hope the set will also work on a different stage. We took some measurements and it's a little narrower but deeper, so it's a little different, but I think it should be fine. Our set is quite flexible because it's just 4 pieces that move. They are on wheels and they can be turned for different sceneries. So there is a little flexibility and we have to try it out, but I'm pretty positive that it will work and that it will look nice because, the set is really nice. I have to give a shout out to Hannah Enste, who did our set design. She's really terrific and managed to do a lot with, not too big, not spending too much and so on. We had to look into our budget and stuff, and she really created something that looks really nice, fits the mood of the play. So that's a great set, and I'm happy that we have it.
Having experienced all that, are you planning on doing another piece?
I would like to write something at some point. Again, right now I'm happy to give it a rest for now, but at some point I will write something. And maybe I will direct something at some point in the future. That would be interesting as well. That's all still a little bit in the vague and nothing concrete yet, but I would love to stay involved with Eclectic and with theater and trying out different things related to theater. That's very fun, and I'm looking forward to all the things that will come in the future.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you as well, and thank you for asking questions that were actually made it quite easy to answer. Much better than the questions from over there. I didn't have to talk about the meaning of life and so on.